Financial Planner. Follow us on YouTube.
Is it all coming to an end? What else does the cabal have up their sleeve? Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, something interesting happened, and we need to go back in time a little bit, because back in time, the deep state, the cabal, they came out with this Trump dossier, and it was passed along to McCain and many others about Trump's sexual escapades, and it turned out to be all fake, phony, and false. And they've been trying to suppress this all along. And what's very interesting about all this right now, investigators from the House Intelligence Committee, they have issued subpoenas to the Department of Justice and the FBI related to the Trump dossier. And what we're seeing right now is that the cabal, the deep state, the Democrats who are all involved in this, well, they may be a little worried right now, because if the background materials are publicized, well, it could damage the whole Trump-Russia collusion narrative, and they don't want this information getting out there. And we know that there was a group called Fusion GPS that funded the entire thing. They were behind it. We know it was passed along. McCain was also involved. And we see right now they are investigating all of this. And what we're slowly starting to see is that the truth is starting to leak out here and there, and they're looking into all of these different things. And remember, a lot of these things were propaganda. And while the cabal, the deep state, they were in control, they were able to keep a lid on all of this. But now that they're losing control, and this is what's happening right now, we're seeing probably the end in sight, because they're losing control in the Middle East. They're not getting anywhere with North Korea. We can see that people are being let go within the government area, because remember, they have been in deep in government, and we can see a lot of people have been letting go, a lot of people have been resigning. And what is happening is we're seeing the end to this control, but it doesn't mean that we're at the end just yet. We're getting to that point. And as we move to that area, and this happens all the time, people start to wonder, people start to think, people start to investigate, and they say, hey, was this real or was this made up? Let's investigate this. Let's investigate Hillary Clinton's emails. Let's investigate the Trump dossier. Let's investigate all the propaganda and see what was real, what was fake. And this is what we're seeing right now. And this is going to continue on, because we're starting to see that the cabal, they are in trouble. Now, we know that elections, well, they're rigged. I mean, they can pretend all they want that, no, the elections aren't rigged. They're perfectly legit, but they are rigged. They brought illegal immigrants in. There's a lot of voters that they can't account for. Information's been coming out that there's millions of people that maybe they're dead, maybe they don't exist, maybe they voted twice, and our election systems, they're kind of compromised. So let's think about how we can change this. Now, we know they use a lot of computer systems to do the elections, and we know from Bev Harris, they are completely not reliable, because she did a test, and the person who was handling the elections, they didn't even realize, they didn't even know that they were manipulated, because they got their printout, they thought everything was fine, but in the background, of course, it was all manipulated. This brings us to the blockchain, which could be used for voting, because it is a truth machine. It keeps a ledger. And right now what we're seeing is that they are actually looking at this. They're looking at a new form of liquid democracy in which voters can influence politics with just a tap of an app. And it will record the transactions, the votes. And you can go back and look at all these transactions. Now, the basic concept of liquid democracy is that voters can express their wishes on an issue directly or delegate their vote to someone else they think is better placed to decide on their behalf. In turn, those delegates can also pass votes upward through the chain. Now, again, this is not all ironed out. This is the beginning stages of this. And we can see that this might be one way of controlling the votes and making sure that it's all on the up and up, because we have to understand that the blockchain is incorruptible. No one can modify or subvert how the votes are stored. And that's vital for democracy. So that is one good thing that might come out of the blockchain here. Now, again, the cabal, the central banks, those in power, they don't want this. They don't like the blockchain unless they're in control. If they are not in control and it's completely decentralized, they don't like this whatsoever. We see the top EU court, they are threatening Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, and they're saying, listen, if you refuse to accept refugees, we will sue. And we see right now that a lot of countries are out there and they're saying, listen, we don't want to take on more refugees. We don't want to take on more of these individuals. We want to control our borders. We want to control what we're doing here. And we can see that the EU, which is a non-elected body, they are pushing their agenda because what do they want? They want them to do what they want. Now, this is part of the cabal, the deep state, the central bank. And we can see right now, if you don't follow along with the non-elected leaders, they don't like this. We see South Korea right now. They might be installing more terminal high altitude area defense system, which is called the THAAD. And it looks like because of what's happening in North Korea, they might be implementing these rocket systems. Now, this has been brought in before, and they're trying to push Moon Jae-in to accept even more. This is exactly what the cabal wants, and this is what they're pushing for. Now, there is a report coming out of the corporate media saying that China might be closing their borders with North Korea. Now, again, we know why they're doing this. They're trying to convince us that China's about to do something. And we need to look at this very closely because they're saying that, yes, they're going to be closing parts of it in a certain area. But there is the Korean Friendship Bridge, and this is a road rail bridge that spans the Yalu River into North Korea. And this accounts for 70% of the trade volume between the two countries. This is going to remain open. So it looks like they're closing, maybe they're closing something else, but the main thoroughfare between the two countries is remaining open. So who knows what they're really doing, but the corporate media is trying to put it out there that they're actually, preparing to do something. And it looks like their main thoroughfare where they're having all the trading and all their business, 70% of this between the two countries, that is remaining open. Now, what's very interesting is the corporate media is, continually pushing the idea that we're going to war with North Korea. And they're saying, talk is out now. We can't have diplomacy. That's all gone. And it looks like Trump, he's just playing games with the corporate media because what he's saying is that, listen, military action in North Korea, well, it's not his first choice. And again, he uses the phrase, we will see what happens. And it looks like he's playing with the corporate media because what they want him to do is they want him to say that, North Korea crossed the red line. We're going into North Korea. We're going to stop this. And what he keeps doing is he keeps playing with them with all these different types of games like military action is not our first choice. We'll see what happens. We want China to take care of this. We're going to place sanctions on China, which would destroy the U.S. economy. So what he's doing right now is he's playing games and he's moving this back and forth, confusing the corporate media. Remember, the corporate media is the mouthpiece for the deep state, the cabal. Now, it looks like Russia, they are becoming closer and closer with Japan. It looks like they want to build a bridge between the Sakhalin and the Hokkaido Islands, and they want to connect the two, Russia and Japan. And this is going to be used for trade. And we can see right now that they are basically becoming closer and closer together. Same with South Korea. Moon Jae-in is moving closer and closer with Russia and China. And basically what's happening is they are going to be siding with Russia and China and moving away from the United States. Iran decided that they're going to be closing their airspace for U.S. and Saudi aircraft. And the reason for this is because of what's happening in Yemen right now. And Yemen is going through this incredible, horrific crisis where the families, women, children, men, they're all starving. And it is absolutely terrible. And what they're saying is that after the cruelties against Yemen and given the fact that the military system of a country is not separate from its government and trade system, therefore, we cannot show double standard behavior towards the world. And for instance, when we say that the U.S. is a world arrogant power, therefore, we don't allow the U.S. aircraft, even passenger planes, to fly over the Islamic Republic of Iran because we are against its governance policies. And they're doing this with Saudi Arabia. They're doing this with the U.S., saying, listen, we're closing our airspace because what is happening in Yemen. And we know what's happening in Yemen. Saudi Arabia, through the United States, wants to get into Yemen. They want the puppet government back. They want their oil. It's in a strategic location, so they want all of that. We see the UN came out with their report where it's slamming the U.S. and its allies. And basically the conclusion of the UN says, listen, the United States and its allies, well, they have violated international law. They failed to protect the civilians in Syria, in Iraq, and many other areas. And remember, they weren't there to protect the civilians. The Cabal was there to overthrow and put in puppet governments. And they destroyed infrastructure, they hit civilians, and at this point, the UN report is actually correct. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, he repeatedly stated that the U.S. presence in Syria is illegal according to international law. U.S. forces and those of their allies have not been authorized by the UN to conduct any military action on Syrian soil. Russia and Iran have been invited in by the president of Syria. The United States and the allies invaded that country. Doesn't matter if there's terrorists in there. It doesn't matter, because think about it. Switch it around. If there were terrorists in this country, would the United States be okay with Syrian forces coming in without permission to fight the terrorists? No, they would not. Basically, what they did was invade another country, and the whole community, except for Russia and China and Syria and Iran, everyone else seems to be fine with it. They broke international law, and no one is questioning it. Why? Because they're afraid. But things are changing now. Russia and China, they're detaching themselves from the dollar. They're detaching themselves where they can be independent. Once you become independent financially, you're not afraid anymore. And you can speak out against that power, because the sanctions, they do nothing. Smaller countries where the sanctions would do something, they stay very quiet. And we can see that things are slowly changing. We see Russia is setting up deconfliction zones north of Aleppo. And as they continually move throughout Syria, they're setting up these deconfliction zones so they can control the entire area. They put their military police in position, and they protect the area. They protect the civilians, and they protect it from, yes, the moderate rebels, the Islamic State, and Al-Qaeda. The UN is out there, and they're saying, listen, the Syrian opposition must accept it has not won the war in Syria. So already the UN is saying, listen, you're done. The moderate rebels, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, it's all done. The Syrians, the Russians, they have gained control of the country, and the Syrian opposition, they must accept defeat at this point. So everything that the Cabal has been working for, it is coming to an end. All they have left right now is, I think, Ukraine and North Korea. North Korea right now is the hot spot. And we can see that they've been playing this up quite a bit, and they're going to push this very, very hard. And we can see already that Trump is really downplaying this right now. And we can see by everything that's been going on, the Cabal, it looks like their time is coming to an end. And their ability to create war might be coming to an end right now, unless they do something huge. And this is what we've been looking at. This is what we've been observing. Because right now, coming out of Site Intelligence Group, and we know this is a propaganda piece, Rita Katz handles this. They work with the Islamic State. They work with Mossad. And we can see right now the Islamic State is out there. And is anyone really scared of the Islamic State? They're pretty much done for. But they're still putting out messages that they're planning to poison the supermarket food with cyanide to all the Western countries. I mean, they're just pushing out propaganda, trying to scare people in Europe, people in Russia, people in the United States, to make everyone believe that they're coming to get us. But at this point, they are really done for right now. So what are we seeing? We are seeing basically the end of the deep state, the Cabal right now. And they are slowly but surely losing power. More and more information is coming out into the open. We can see at this point that the Fed There are those individuals that are leaving right now because they realize it's time to get out. And I believe that we're going to see many more individuals either get fired, either get let go, or just resign themselves because they see the writing is on the wall. Now, we're still heading for this major collapse. We're still heading to a complete and utter disaster. We're still moving to the death of the dollar. That has not changed whatsoever. And as we move throughout this year, we're going to see more economic indicators deteriorate. And before you know it, we're going to come to a certain point in time where everything just completely falls apart. And I know people have been writing in telling me this is why we're getting, this is why they basically started allowing the police to purchase military assets, because we know what's going to happen. We know that people are going to be shocked. I mean, think about it. In Texas and in Florida, as hurricanes are approaching, the store shelves became empty. Gas lines are like just down the block. People are scrambling. They don't know what to do. Why? Because they are not prepared for what is coming. And you could just see from these couple of storms here how people are getting. And what I'm hearing is that people are looking for flashlights. There's no water on the shelves. People can't get gas at gas stations because gas stations are running out. They're trying to get prepped at the last minute. This is the worst time to get prepped. You should have been prepping all along. And as the economy comes down and we run into this situation, you don't want to be prepping at the last minute. This is the wrong time to do it because guess what? You're going to be desperate. You don't want to be desperate in this situation. This is why you need to be ready and prepared.